Hello and welcome to Story X Story, the podcast by Mayamada that dives deep into stories across pop culture, plus gives you advice on creating your own. It's episode 209, and I'm your co-host Nigel.
I am Tazziii, content creator and co-host.
And for our behind the story episodes, we like to talk to creative professionals and practitioners across industries to unpack their journey. And today we're going to hear the story behind animation director Simone Giampaolo. Simone, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Hello everyone. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Thank you for being here. And yeah, appreciate you making the time. Sort of like we met and I was like, come on the podcast, and here you are. So appreciate you accepting the invite. And yeah, very, very keen to hear about the stuff you do and the process behind animation. I'm keen to work out how we can do animation as well. So I'll just be taking notes as you as you talk as well. So this is really for me, actually. This is actually just is all for me.
Fantastic. Can't wait to answer all of your questions.
Right. And listeners, you can subscribe to Story X Story wherever you get your podcast from, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also send us your feedback and questions in a variety of ways. We have a voice message option on our Spotify for Podcasters page. You can email us studio77@mymatter.com. Or you can throw your thoughts at us on social media. We are at Mayamada on Twitter, at Mayamada TV on Instagram and TikTok, at Mayamada.com on Blue Sky, or Life of a W Gamer on Instagram, TikTok, and Tazziii on everything else, including tazzy.bsky.social on Blue Sky. We've also got our website. You can check out Mayamada.com. Got a new website coming at some point in 2025, so stay tuned for that, as well as a new Discord. We're rebuilding things from the ground up. So, but you can still visit, join both to be part of the Mayamada community, and get a heads up on those changes when they do come. So before we learn more about our guest, let's update you with the latest from the Mayamada universe. We have new manga, and that's good because that was a long process, but we made it. We have a new manga that is available. You can actually, it's been held by people. People have held it. It's real. It's not just me saying it's coming. So that's really good. We've got the Origins Against All Odds story featuring Tazziii. So as always, a big thank you to our very patient Kickstarter backers that made this possible. So this is the first Origins title within the Mayamada universe, and it features Tazziii's character in the Mayamada universe. So it's a reflective, hope-filled manga about pursuing your creative career goals in the face of resistance and doubters from the world around you. And it's been good to get people's responses and positive feedback so far, including Tazziii, who's now actually read it, because for the 2 years we were working on it, you had no idea what it was about.
Not a clue.
Yeah, other than your characters in it and you saw the cover. So that's been good. And yeah, you can get your copy. We've got the regular edition and the collector's edition. Go to mymatter.com or just reach out to us. We're at some events. Or we've been to some events and we're going to be at some events. So there'll be points at the year where you can find us and get it in person. We're also working on the Do I Look Like a Gamer campaign. So this is our campaign around diversity and inclusion in the video games industry. And each year we take a new snapshot of 40 players and makers to showcase representation where it does exist and inspire future generations of diverse talent. And diversity can mean different things: location, age, experience. So it's always a learning experience to find out, for us, to find out where people have come to games from. So that's been cool. So we are now looking ahead to events. So we do the photos, then we do events. We've got our launch in April 12th, which will be the point where you can find out about this year's activities, meet some of those involved in this year's campaign, or just collaborators as well. So some people will have been in the photos in past years. Some people we maybe just met, like Simone, we just met and they joined the live stream. But yeah, stay tuned for that, and then event news to come from that point on. We're also on Twitch doing our Studio 77 activities. So this is our digital platform where we host different shows with creative professionals and play games for your amusement. So each month we do different shows. We got the Studio 77 report with myself and Tazziii doing updates from the universe. casual conversations with comic creators where I speak to a different comic creator, and games night where we try and play a new game, and part of the live stream is us setting up the game and learning the controls sometimes. But that's what you tune into to see, right? So yeah, so make sure you're following us on Twitch to catch each of those shows, and social media to find out when things are coming. And we've also got the Showrunners Work Experience program. So if you're a young aspiring creative professional or you know one, then check out the Showrunners Work Experience program, where we're creating opportunities for young people aged 16 and up to work with our team across comic production, events, and content creation. And we've got, actually, because we've got our own program, and then we do like event-based stuff, but then we're doing a collaboration with Waltham Forest, which is a local borough in London. We've got a group. In fact, as you listen to this, we would have already done the first stage of the program. So we've got a group of event and media hopefuls. I was saying hopefuls like it's a game show or something, but I don't know, life is a game, who knows. But yeah, so we've got a group that we're going to be working quite closely with at some of our upcoming events. So different opportunities for different types of people at different stages in their early career. Email us if you'd like to know more, showrunners@mymatter.com, and we will tell you all about it. So that's where we are with the My Matter universe. Now, with all that being said, let's go behind the story with today's guest. Simone is a London-based Swiss director known for a lot of meaningful storytelling and humorous characters. He's directed multiple award-winning short films, including the Oscar shortlisted and BAFTA-nominated Only a Child. His work spans major clients like Netflix, Google, Disney, Lego, and BBC, and collaborated with different studios, independent and otherwise, and is also a board member of the London ACM, SIGAF. And as a board member of London ACM, SIGAF, and View Conference, he mentors young animators through lectures and masterclasses at universities and festivals. So, Simone, listeners of the podcast will know, and those who follow My Matter will know, that creativity is very important to us. But as our first question, as we always do, we'd like to know, what does creativity mean to you?
A very good question to start this conversation. Thank you. Creativity is, when I think about creativity, it always reminds me to a beautiful quote from poet and writer Dorothy Parker, which says, "Creativity is a wild mind with a disciplined eye," which is basically everything you feel, everything you learn, everything you want to express needs to be channeled, needs to be sort of constrained into a funnel or into a tunnel, which allows you to generate art or express yourself in the discipline that you prefer. It could be poetry, it could be music, it could be animation, it could be filmmaking, but you need that kind of education and that kind of self-improvement in order to channel that creativity, channel those wild ideas that you might have as a young person. I have always really liked this. But more personally, I also see creativity as compassion. I mean, let's just listening to all the events, those creative collaborations that you are organizing for young people, that all this opportunity and those chances that young people have to enjoy storytelling or to learn from storytellers that you are providing. It's very inspiring to hear that. I think that's the purest form of creativity, in my opinion. Creativity seen as compassion, as empathy. So, in my opinion, personal opinion, creativity is the most effective way we have as human beings to make one another feel better on this planet. There is no other way, unless it's connected to things that are more materialistic. There is no other way that we have to make someone feel better or to make ourselves feel better. Think about music, painting, poetry, filmmaking. Like, all these things make people feel something and usually feel better, or make yourself feel better while you do them. So that's what creativity is to me. It's compassion, and create that very intimate connection with other human beings and my more deeper self.
Yeah. Wow, that's Yeah, that's making me rethink things now. So that's a good. I like that. And you're right. There are materialistic things that can maybe give the impression of like happiness and achievement, but then I feel creativity like goes like a lot deeper than that. What was that quote again? You said?
Creativity is a wild mind with a disciplined eye.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna.
I always say that to students, especially when young students who go to university to learn art, animation. They come to school with these big ideas and big ambitions, but you have to remember those ideas need some discipline and need to be put onto the right track in order to become real, in order to become an actual product that can be enjoyed by people in the future. It's very important to balance the two things, and creativity is that balance that allows you to have ideas but also to make other people enjoy them.
Joy, yeah. I think that's often overlooked because people might have the assumption like creativity is like no boundaries and just say anything and do anything anytime. But then, like you say, you need like the discipline, and it has to be a balance. And balance doesn't even necessarily mean 50-50 all the time. There might be times you need more of one at some point and more of the other. It's always a shifting thing. But I think that's a really good.
Oh yeah.
That's a really good quote. Okay, so that's just going to stick with me now. I feel I've got everything I needed from this interview. I'm just going to change my life.
Well,
But
I have a nice day then.
yeah, I think it's the easiest edit ever. Yeah, so I mean, I mentioned this early on. We met fairly recently at the Young BAFTA Showcase event. Well,
Yeah.
it was like a weekend kind of situation, and you were given a talk, which I sat in on and tried my best not to ask a question because I know it's mostly like for the kids in the room, so I didn't want to kind of like take over. But it'd be interesting to know. Just give us an overview of like that event and like what you were doing there and how you found the whole experience.
This is the second time I come to the Young BAFTA Showcase, and I'm really happy when I get involved in projects like these or events like this, because it gives me a really a chance, an opportunity to talk to young people directly. Usually I talk to young people through my products, through my animations. I make animations for a living. I make TV shows, commercials, short films, and those shorts talk to a young audience, so try to speak to the heart of a young audience or families. But in these events allow me to talk to young people directly, which is really unique for me. It's quite it's very inspiring for me as well to see how they react and the kind of question that they might have. And I think the most important thing about that event, and the most important thing that the one thing that BAFTA cares about, and the one reason they call me and they called me back for that event, is because most of my work, I wouldn't say all of it, but most of my work has always got a message or a moral at the end. It's fun, it's quirky, sometimes there is lots of slapstick comedy, but I always try to inject a sort of educational moral to the short films or TV series that I do, whether it is a eco-friendly environmental message, or is a message about equality, is a message against racism. Like with animation, the beauty of animation and the magic about animation is that you can talk about these very harsh topics, very heavy topics, such as war, such as racism, such as discrimination, with sort of a more gentle touch that it can be accessible for all sort of audience, including kids. So that's one of the reason why I always appreciate this kind of events, is because you can talk about certain content with the right amount of stylization and the right amount of poetry, which is accessible to everyone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. I feel it's almost like a similar thing, or a similar thing I've thought with comedy. Like sometimes the two are like animation and comedy.
Oh yeah, they are sisters. Yeah.
Yeah, and it allows you to approach like difficult subjects that sometimes people wouldn't want to approach, or might be more defensive or whatever in approaching had you just talked about it straight. But if it's in an animation or a different form, then they can engage with it a bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
I might still disagree, but yeah.
It's a bit more difficult in live action. It's not impossible
Mm,
in live action, but it's a bit more difficult sometimes to present certain uncomfortable truths or uncomfortable situations through live action footage. That's why
yeah.
stylizing something and using animation or even games as a way of stylizing a certain topic allows you to reach a wider audience. That's one of the main reason I really fell in love with this medium.
Right. And do you think every story has to have a message or more? Because like we do workshops with young people, well, actually different ages, but mostly younger creatives or potential creatives. And one of the things when we do our like comic story workshop, I always say I feel any good story has some kind of message or theme or engages in something. I don't know if that's universally true. I don't know what your thoughts are. Does it have to have a theme? That's my thought anyway.
Not every story needs a theme, but I do believe that story with a moral value or story with a teaching at the end, they resonate more with the audience and therefore they stick longer with the viewer.
Yeah.
There are certain stories, certain shorts, certain feature films which are pure fun. It's just, just fun, and that's fine. That's part of the entertainment industry. But those stories, in my opinion, they tend to be forgotten quite
Mm.
soon and quite quickly. Whereas the stories which have a deeper value or a deeper meaning, they tend to be remembered more and therefore appreciated more.
Yeah, that makes it. Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Yeah, the ones that stick around and really live, especially look like cross generations, have that extra layer. But yeah, there's different ways to tell a story. So that makes sense. That makes sense. So I want to know a bit about your journey and how you got to where you are. I mentioned it in the intro, like you're based in London, but you're originally Swiss. Yeah, did you grow up in Switzerland? Like, tell us about your like where you grew up and also what drew you to animation as a fan, but then also as a I make animation like as a career.
Yeah, that's correct. I grew up in the Italian side of Switzerland, which
Mm.
is in the south part of Switzerland, close to Lugano. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, and that's the reason why I've got this Italian accent as well. That's the reason why I get confused for an Italian person often because we basically speak the same language. And I've always I've been drawing and I've been illustrating stories, writing stories since I can remember. Like I grew up doing that, but I never took that seriously as a potential serious career path until I was 20. So it's always been my hobby, drawing, sketching. I was making comics while I was during my teenagehood. I was making illustrations for friends. I grew up basically with two main inspiration. Oh, let's say three main inspiration. My triangle of love for the entertainment industry. On one side is Disney classics. On the
Mm.
opposite side is Japanese anime, which were huge
Uh,
on the Italian television. And I was watching Italian television, so I grew up with tons of anime. And the third one was my love for video games. I've always been a Nintendo fanatic, so I grew up with the Nintendo 64 and GameCube, and I was crazy about that. But it's always been more of a hobby for me until I turned 20 and I started checking some schools in the UK. First of all, I needed to improve my English, so I wanted to move to a country which could allow me to study and to work in English. So I checked. I noticed that there was this National Center for Computer Animation in Bournemouth, which was very appealing. It sounded very nice. Bournemouth is on the south coast, so it's quite a nice place to be if you're
mm.
studying abroad for 3 years. So I moved there for 3 years. I studied computer animation, and after that, I got my first job in London in 2014 at Blue Zoo Animation, which is one of
Nice.
the major studios in London, which makes kids TV and commercial. And and I've never left since then. Since 2014, I've never left. It's been 12 years now. I've been jumping from studio to studio, jumping from project to projects, moved my first steps from short form into TV series. So longer formats, which are very interesting and allow you to to explore more storytelling opportunities. And yeah, that's my story in a nutshell, very quickly. So my love started with pencil and paper, my love for creativity, my love for
Right.
storytelling. And then thanks to Bournemouth University, I was channeled into the 3D universe. And I'm still basically mostly 3D focused, CGI focused, even though I love mixing up techniques and I love mixed media if it's possible to do.
Okay, that's really interesting. And would you like that path that you described? Would you say that's the typical way into animation? Because oftentimes people, have the question, how do you break into whatever industry they want to break into? And it sounds like you went it sounds like a straight path in. Was it a straight path in?
Really depends on your personality. I think there has been a lot of talk on, do you need a university? Do you need a degree to become an animator or to work in animation, or can you just teach yourself stuff thanks to the thousands, millions of tutorials that you can find online or online schools? The answer is, you don't need a university. It's not necessary. If you can teach yourself, you can have do tutorials, you can improve to the point that you can be hired by a company just by as a self-taught artist. However, that really depends on your personality. And I'm a person who needs a brief, especially when I was younger. I need to be pushed by other peers. I need to be surrounded by other people who are striving for the same goal, who are, sort of collaborating to do an assignment or to create something special together. So that environment for me, like being like this full immersion in Bournemouth, surrounded by other creative minds and other 3D animators, was invaluable for me. I would have never found the motivation to learn so much by myself staying at home if I didn't have the chance to spend, if I stayed at home, or if I remained in a more recluded environment. I needed to be surrounded. I needed to be pushed. I needed to compare myself to other peers and really challenge each other. That's what really made a difference for me. But that depends on your personality. I know super talented animators who are now working at major studios such as DreamWorks or Disney, who have learned animation by themselves in their own room or in their own home. And that's because they had the motivation to do so. So it really depends what kind of person you are and how you can motivate yourself to achieve that quality that is necessary to get hired.
Right. That's a really good distinction to make because, I feel like the path of university for some people doesn't always work out or is just not an option for whatever reason. But I think it's important that you've mentioned it's like the personality. So it sounded like you needed that, the discipline you spoke about, the structure, and then you can thrive creatively. Whereas if you didn't have that, you might not have as well.
Yeah. Also, let's be honest. I was lucky enough to study at Bournemouth University before the reform, which happened in 2014 or 15, I believe, which brought all the prices of the university up a lot. So I was, I think I was paying something around £3,000 per year. And suddenly, a few years later, it went up to
10 or something. Was it,
or 10. I don't think I would have chosen the UK for studying if the prices were that high. So I do understand people these days who are struggling to go to uni and they prefer having a course online, and that still allows them to achieve their dream job or to get hired. However, I felt that I will treasure forever the moments that were spent in the animation labs surrounded by other people who were, struggling to deliver the animation or deliver their shots for the animation assignments, and having that feeling of camaraderie. We are all in this together. We have to help each other as students. We can encourage each other.
Especially when you pull those all-nighters.
Exactly. Exactly. I will teach you that. You will teach me this. I will give you part of my hamburger. You will give me some salad. We can make it through the night. I really treasure that kind of feeling, which for me was very important to get motivated. Yeah.
I like that. So we often ask people about what their family thinks about what they do. I feel like you're at a stage where even if maybe in the early days they didn't, I'm not saying if they did or didn't, but because you've worked with very recognizable names, that they would now understand it. So did they understand it when you wanted to go into animation, and what do they think about what you do now?
I think my parents, I was lucky enough to grow up in a very artistic family. So my parents actually met while doing theater together. They were both actors on the same play. They were not professionals. It's like hobby level, but they met doing theaters and they fell in love. And a few years later, I was born. So my father also paints. He used to be a graphic designer. Now he's retired and he paints. So I grew up in this very supportive environment. They might not understand everything of CGI. I'm sure they don't. They don't understand the full pipeline. But they've always encouraged me. They always said, "Look, if that's what you want to do, we're gonna support you. If the plan doesn't work, we're gonna find something else." So I've always had that very, very lucky, supportive environment at home, which made a big difference. I really admire, and I have, full respect for those artists who didn't grow up in an artistic family, and they had to fight for, becoming artists, even though their parents might have wanted them to become lawyers or dentists or doctors. And I met a lot of them throughout my career. So I'm a really, really appreciate and really admire that. In my case, I've always been supported. They always tried to push me forward, even though they didn't understand CGI fully. I mean, I don't even understand CGI fully these days, so I'm not expecting my dad to do it. But they saw the results. They saw every time I made an animation, every time I made a short, every time I made a shot, I would send it to my dad, even if it was under NDA. I would still secretly send it to him and say, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And he would give me feedback. He would say, "Oh, the lighting is great, the performance works, but you could maybe improve that." I always enjoyed receiving feedback and criticism from him because he's got a very artistic eye, and I think he also enjoyed giving me notes. It felt like, oh, that was part of his job too. And yeah, it's been nice. I'm still doing that. Sometimes I send them some episodes in before it's released and say, "Hey, what do you think?"
What do you think? Yeah.
And it's always nice to have a positive reaction from my parents, so they understand that thanks to all the work and all the team and all the effort together, we produce this kind of content which families enjoy around the world.
Nice. Oh, yeah. No, that's really nice. Cool. And just thinking about, again, those sort of early days of your career, what is the best advice someone else gave you when you were starting, and did you follow it?
That's a good question. Let me think. I think the best piece of advice that I was given, I don't remember actually who gave it to me. It's something along the lines, it doesn't need to be perfect, it needs to be finished. That's the thing, and that's what made me achieve, I think, what I've achieved throughout my career. Like, no short film or no TV series, no commercial is perfect, but it needs to be finished. So doesn't need to be perfect, it needs to be finished. I know lots of people, lots of artists who would polish their showreel or their shots for months and months and years, and they wouldn't really show it to anyone, or they wouldn't send it to recruiters or to companies because afraid it would not be good enough. So in my opinion, it's better to like that self-discipline that comes from creativity, the same, like going back to my initial quote, creativity is a wild mind with a disciplined eye. That discipline is also being able to put a full stop at the end of a project, at the end of an assignment, at the end of a shot, at the end of a illustration. So say, okay, that's not perfect. I could have done better, but it's finished. Let's move on. So that's the one thing that most students and young artists have to learn. It's like, it doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be finished. And that allows you to move on to the next project, which is going to be better. It's going to be more appealing. It's going to be more successful. But you need all these, sort of all these steps, and you need to practice and make lots of not perfect projects in order to achieve something which is beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's an important one. It's good that you were told that it's an important one to learn early on, because I feel you can get like, this is the one and I'm going to make this perfect and it's going to change everything. Whereas in reality, it's like, it is the constant doing and releasing and then moving on to the next one that really makes people notice. And you just, you've got stuff out that people can see, oh, this is what you do. So that makes a lot of sense. And, speaking of the process, so you're an animation director. Could you basically, what is that? Because I feel, there's so many creative industries and so many roles within that people aren't aware of and don't have full appreciation of how the things they consume get made. So when it comes to animation, what does a animation director do? Is it different than a director on a live action film? How does that contrast look like?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Nigel. Actually, I would like to draw a little separation between the two roles, and that's something that I have to explain sometimes, because animation director usually in our industry refers to the principal person who handles animation on a project. That is purely animation. Like that, I'm talking about just the performance and the beauty of the movement of how the characters are animated. Whereas director of animated films handles and takes care of every single department in the animation pipeline. So from concept art to pre-production to storyboarding, layout, animation, and post-production. That's the one distinction, the one separation that I want to clarify just before answering the question. And I used to be an animation director. Like, I grew up as animator, I became animation director, so I was basically the one person in charge of all the movement in a certain story or commercial or TV series. And then I made, at some point of my career, I made a step up and I became actually director of animated films. It's just a, it's just a different way of saying. It seems
flip
like
the
the
words,
same.
and it's a whole different.
Yeah, exactly. If you flip the two words, most people think it's still the same, but actually those are two separate roles. And my role right now is, yes, of course, I still review animation. I make sure that the performance are compelling and appealing, but I also take care of everything else with the team. I supervise the drawings in pre-production, the storyboard, animation, lighting, compositing, and even music and voice directing. So the director of animation is a much more, how do you say, holistic kind of approach to filmmaking. Very broad. You don't have to be a professional, super proficient in every single one of these area. I don't know how to, model I don't know how to model a lion, or I don't know how to animate right now a bird or a monkey, but you need to be able, as a supervisor, to give feedback on that area so that your artists can do the best they can in the time they have allowed. So yeah, it's a very different approach. But and when it comes to animation, a director of the whole animation, you have to be basically 360 filmmaker. You have to take care of everything from cameras to lighting and music.
And are you comfortable with that? Because it sounds like you've come from a more artistic background in education, but in that role is like now you're people managing and process managing and maybe doing less like art related tasks. Is that the case?
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes I miss it. Sometimes I miss just sitting in front of a shot and animating it, or making just a drawing or a storyboard. I used to do that much more before, and now it's mostly basically criticizing other people's work, which is
Yeah, do this again. Right? It's not.
yeah, which is, I'm getting better at it. Especially, you never stop learning. Every project is like you're starting from scratch. You're bringing a baggage of experience, but every time you join a new project with a new team, it's like you're starting all over again. You have to learn the dynamics within the company and within the team, and I enjoy it. I enjoy Tom Bancroft, I think, one of the directors of Mulan, said a good director serves his or her team so that the team can serve their vision. So, like as a director, we want to serve our artists. We want to make sure they feel comfortable and they feel empowered to do their own, to develop their own ideas and their own craft, so that they can serve the bigger picture, which is the vision that we have for short or the TV series. And I enjoy that, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm not drawing enough these days. I miss drawing.
Draw more.
Sometimes I do little drawings for my son. I've got a 2-year-old now, so I can spend some time drawing with him. He mostly wants little birds and dogs and cats to be drawn these days. Nothing,
Okay.
nothing
Yeah, that's
too
good.
yeah,
Yeah. Easy audience.
it's an easy audience. He
Yeah.
gets easily pleased, yeah,
It's
but
5 stars. We're
he's
best.
gonna become much more difficult in a few
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
So
Enjoy that.
I try to channel my creativity at home whenever I can as a hobby again. But throughout the day, like a main supervisor of a project, I have very little time to help out, like
Yeah.
actually producing art.
Okay. All right. No, it's good insight into like the differences, because I didn't actually know the difference in those two. So thanks for that.
And that applies to games as well. Like animation director on a game takes care of all the characters' movement, how they move, how they run, how they walk, etc. While the director of the game takes care of everything,
Yeah. Everything. Yeah.
from the
Yeah. That's a
story
good
to
point.
the render.
So, like looking at your website, and you've worked with a lot of big names, and obviously, like going to your talk as well, just hearing the projects you've worked on, and like the quality and the names. And from a outsider's perspective, like seeing like Disney, Netflix, you've worked with Aardman, these are all like really massive studios. It sounds like you've made it, whatever made it means, but that's what everyone wants, right? You work with the big names. Do you feel established? Because you seem like really established, but there's that feeling of wanting to improve and even like imposter syndrome. Have you ever had to deal with that, even having worked with such well-known brands?
Yeah, simple answer is yes. I do feel imposter syndrome sometimes. I do. I think I'm a good director, but it's always very easy for a creative to criticize themselves and trying to make it better. I'm even before getting into art, I've always been a perfectionist. I was the kind of child who, always I would finish a drawing and I would be unhappy because there is a little something which didn't work here, or I would
Yep.
finish a
Yeah.
story and say, I could have written that better. I'm not that satisfied. I was always unsatisfied, and that I brought that, unfortunately or fortunately, because that gave me also, that perfectionism is part of my daily job as well. People probably hire me because I care about the final product. So that's part of the reason why I find job. But that's also part of me not being, being very rarely happy with the final result. It's very difficult for me especially immediately you finish the project, to sit in front of the TV or sit in front of the computer and say, that's fantastic. We've done the best we could. I would always see all the mistakes and all the imperfections, and that goes away with time. I have to let it go. As I was saying before, it's finished, not perfect. It's finished, not perfect. Move on. And when I leave the projects I do on the side for months or sometimes years, then I go back to them and I find them much, much better than I would remember.
Okay.
Because all the imperfection and all the mistakes have faded in my memory, and I just see the product with fresh eyes now, and I like it. But in that immediate moment when I finish a project, I'm never fully satisfied. And about working with big studios, it's definitely, it gives you some credibility, to have contributed or having collaborated with big names. But if I have to be honest with you, the most meaningful work and the work that's the reason we met, for example, like the piece of work that allowed me to be invited by BAFTA and meet you, who very kindly invited me to this podcast, that was not a big studio production. That was my own indie film. So I on the one hand, I'm proud to have collaborated, to have worked on Lego stuff, to Marvel, even Pokemon. It's like, these are all cool stuff that it looks good in your portfolio. But the one piece of work, or the couple of pieces of work which really defined me as an artist, are actually the one which comes from unknown companies that I made with independent artists, like such as Only a Child, the BAFTA-nominated short. That was an indie production, and there was no big name attached to that, no big studio. So that, what I'm trying to say here is, it's cool, and it sort of helps you develop a network of clients to work with big studios. But the biggest satisfaction as a filmmaker or as an artist can come from your own ideas, and can come from very cheap independent productions that are close to your heart. The biggest example of the year that everyone has been talking about is Flow, the indie animation feature film which won the Oscar, surpassing Pixar, DreamWorks, etc., etc. That was a small indie production with a big idea and ambition, and they made it work. Sometimes you don't need those big names to really feel satisfied as an artist, and that this Flow, the success of Flow, is a great example of that.
Yeah, it's a good one to bring up, because I actually hadn't heard of it. I haven't seen it, and I want to see it, but because I just assumed that the Wild Robot would win that award. So when I looked, I was like, Flow. I was like, what is this? So I looked into it and was like, okay, that sounds like an interesting premise. And I think what you're saying about making something that sort of speaks to you, often that's the one that, if we're talking like breakthrough personally or as a studio or company, whatever, it's doing the thing that resonates with you, and then that often will resonate with a large group of people, versus, like you say, it's good to work with like big brands and there's credibility in that, but sometimes that's not the one that makes that breakthrough for you artistically or even professionally. And you've got like Only a Child, what, like you said, has been the one that's your story, right? Do you want to tell us a bit about that? What is the story about, and why do you think it's got such the recognition that it's got?
Only a Child was born as is a bit of my own baby, not because I created the story of it, but because I created the creative collaboration which made it happen. So let me just. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, or you can watch it after. It's basically, we turn the speech of 12 years old Severn Kale Suzuki at the United Nations in 1992 into an animated poem, a visual poem. So we based the whole short film on a speech, which was given at the United Nations in Rio by a child. And I edited it, I cut it, and I reassembled some pieces, and I made it flow in a way that was visually pleasing, attaching different artists with different animation techniques to it. So that's one thing that, again, we are going back to the same topic as the beginning. Like, creativity for me is not just, sometimes it's not just painting the picture or animating the shot, is enabling creative collaboration to make something extraordinary that one person alone couldn't have done. And that's what you're doing also. You're creating all these events or all these opportunities for young artists or children to really improve and to collaborate and to learn from one another. And I think there is something beautiful. There is a lot of beauty in that. And that's what happened with Only a Child. I supervised the whole project. I created this storyboard and enabled artists to make their own segment of the short. But it was really a sort of, it was really something. Each artist, rather than being dictated what to do, each artist brought solution and inspiration onto the table. So it's a big effort with lots of different art directors who came on board and created a segment for each part of the speech by Severin Kali Suzuki. So when you watch it, you will see a big army of animation techniques and aesthetics. So there is stop motion, paint on glass animation, sand animation, so animation made with grains of sand. There is CGI, of course, 2D, traditional. So it's a big mix, whirlpool of different techniques that work together to basically deliver this strong, powerful message of Severn. And why is that? Why was that important? Sorry, just to answer your question. Why did I create this creative collaboration? What was the point of all that effort? The point was that Only a Child as an idea was born just a few months before Fridays for Future movement came about. You remember when Greta Thunberg started
Right, yeah.
sitting on a street in Sweden and protesting against government not taking action. So I heard some of her speeches, and I heard other young activist speeches, and I thought, wow, what Severn said 30 years ago in 1992 is basically the same these kids are saying in 2019, in 2018 on the street. It's like nothing has changed in over 25, 30 years. How is that possible? How is it possible that someone made such an incredible speech at the United Nations in 1992 and no one really paid attention? So that was the reason behind it. It was, I wanted to create this sort of moral slap to adults who have been ignoring the problem since the 70s, basically.
Yeah, there's a lot of things where it's like, how has this not changed in so many years? But okay, and like, how do you balance? Because animation, there's a big aspect to it as entertainment, right? People want to, some people approach it, I just want to sit and watch something funny or interesting, visually interesting. But then, like we talked about, having that message, that moral. So, how do you balance entertainment with the educational value of your work?
That's a very, very interesting fine line to be found, and that's basically what we are doing on the kids TV show that I'm currently directing for Milkshake and Paramount. The name of the series is Stan and Gran, and Stan and Gran tells the adventures of young Stanley and his grandmother, who explore the southern coast of the UK and find out creatures and discover species and basically enjoy the great outdoors while learning from it, learning the magic of nature. So the whole series is basically based on this fine line between educational value and fun. We're trying
Mm.
every episode we try to make it as fun as possible, as slapstick and engaging as possible, while maintaining some interesting facts, some facts that kids can learn and kids can repeat to their parents, kids can be proud of, share at school or with their family. It's important that we make kids aware of the beauty of nature, even through cartoons, not just live action documentary. And that's what we're trying to do with this series, and that's what I've been trying to do with other shorts or TV shows that I've directed. But there needs to be that element of fun, and usually the best. I don't know about you, but my favorite kind of fun is always the good old Tom and Jerry physical violence. That's the one that I
Yeah.
think always make me giggle, when the character gets
Yeah.
squashed or slapped or
Yeah.
uh,
Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote was my
exactly.
yeah. That was hilarious.
I love that. And if there is a chance, to combine the two and make the characters squashy and stretchy, and while sharing some knowledge and sharing some important values, that's basically we reach our goal. We
Mm.
reach our goal as filmmakers and educators, because as the great show creator of Stunning Ground says, his name is John Mason. Kids will not care or think and will not protect things they don't love. If kids grow up not knowing about nature, not knowing about interesting creatures or endangered creatures, they will not grow up to be adults who care about that and who want to protect that. That's
Right.
our responsibility, I think, as filmmakers as well. If we manage to make them fall in love with nature, with quirky creatures, with incredible habits that seals, puffins, or woodpeckers have, they will grow up to appreciate that and wanting to save it as well. That's something very, very important for us.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good quote. You've given a lot of good quotes. That's I'm going to take all of these. Yeah, thank you for that. And kind of like looking forward, because again, you make a lot of films for young audience, and you mentor, and we work a lot with young people. It makes you think like future, like what's coming, what to look out for. And I feel like creative industries and animation is not immune to this, are in a difficult spot right now for like different reasons. So as a director of animation, which I now know the distinction, like what do you see as a challenge or challenges for animation and creativity in general, but then also what's your biggest hope looking forward?
Yeah, the animation industry is going, and the video games industry also is going
Mm.
through a major shift, not always positive. There have been, the actors and writers strikes. There
Yep.
has
Yep.
been now the coming and the growth of AI, which is
Mm.
sometimes making some artists redundant. But the biggest problem and the reason why some studios are closing worldwide is there was a big boom of animation throughout COVID. More animated films and more video games were produced during COVID because it was the only thing which could continue while live action was stuck. So there was
Right.
this
Yeah.
big,
Of
big,
course.
big boom, and lots of studios expanded to the point that they couldn't become self-sufficient anymore once the production slowed down or
Mm.
got interrupted, like during the strikes. So
Mm.
that's the reason why lots of places have been imploding, or they've been doing layoffs, left and right.
Yeah.
In the
Sounding very
game,
familiar in games. Yeah. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
games, and even at big studios such as Disney and Pixar, some friends of mine have been let go because they don't need that amount of artists anymore. And the reason is they've been a bit greedy. I am not gonna lie. Some companies have been a bit greedy. They've expanded very quickly and very widely, and suddenly there was not that big demand of animation or games anymore, and so they couldn't pay for their studios anymore. That's the truth, and that's a real shame, because I'm seeing lots of my friends and colleagues sort of struggling for work. I'm staying optimistic. I think there will be more productions coming in throughout 2025. Yes, especially in the second half of 25. I think they will start green lighting more things, more feature films, more series. But the past year has been pretty dark for our industry. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Yeah, it's been tough. We've been very blessed, by being able to continue standing run, even though everything else was sort of shaking around us. But being able to work on an original series, because Standing Ground didn't exist before, so being able to create characters from scratch, inventing stories from scratch, animating them, and creating a visual look, an original visual look that has not been seen before, it feels like it's really a privilege for me.
Yeah, no, again, a familiar, sad story and that difficult challenge. But I'd like to think there's still hope for original ideas, and you're there sort of proving that case. So that's optimistic. There you go. And we always consider that idea of we're all protagonists in our own story, and I feel every good protagonist has some kind of goal, some kind of vision of success. So for you, Simone, for your life and your story, what does success look like to you, and are you there yet?
I think I've started to be there. Yes, it's an ongoing process, and it's a lifelong mission, I think. But for me, success is earning a living, making sure that you and your family can live okay without struggles, while making the world a tiny bit better, little by little, cartoon after cartoon, animation after animation. If you can, maintain yourself making a living while making the world a little better, I think that's what success means for me, and that's what I think. That's the meaning of success, in my opinion. And the way, as I was saying before, the way we can make the world better is to speak to people's hearts through our animations, through our creations, especially young people's arts. If you have a chance to make people aware of a certain issue, or if you can make people sensitive and more interested in a certain topic which is important for preserving the environment or respecting another culture and so on, you've already made the world a little better, because you have somewhere in the world you have encouraged a child or a family to make a positive step towards empathy. And that's the best thing I think storytellers like us can do. There is not much else we can do. And I've got another great quote for you, if you like, Nigel. Would you like it?
Yeah, I'm loving it.
That's the only... Walt Disney has said lots of quotes, but that's the one which is definitely my favorite, and the one which really stuck to me. I think of a child's mind as a blank book, and during the first years of his life, much will be written on the pages. The quality of that writing will affect his life profoundly. So that's our responsibility of storytelling, like writing some interesting and some engaging facts on those blank pages, and making sure those books grow up to be good adults. That's the thing that really, and if I can do that while maintaining my family, for me that's success.
Yeah, no, I suddenly feel like a weight of responsibility on the next manga that we make. Okay, good. That's real. That's giving me like some even more deeper perspective, and in terms of like storytelling and connection and empathy. So I like that. I like that definition of success. So cool. In each interview, we like to ask our guests to give advice for aspiring creative professionals and practitioners. So we've been talking animation. Simone, what advice do you have for others who are listening and may want to get started with their own animation or stories and making that empathetic connection with others in the world?
Usually, when I talk to young animation students, I always encourage them to feel the character. So, the only way you can make a, the audience or the viewer fall in love with your character is if your character really displays and projects genuine emotions. And in order to do that, you have to become a bit of an actor yourself. Some animators are not comfortable playing or acting in front of camera, but even whether you act it in front of a mirror or in your head, you have to become the character. You have to enter the character's shoes and you have to feel the character so that you can feel what that character is thinking, what is feeling, and therefore create a better performance, create a more genuine connection with the audience. That's very, very important. And you can do that, by acting out, you don't need really to go to acting school. You can just observe great animation or great actors acting on screen. If you have a look at great actors from the past or present time, and you sort of observe their performance and you analyze their nuances and the way they act and the way they gesticulate, the way they move their mouth. Jack Nicholson and Robert De Niro are great to observe.
Yeah.
For example, if you see all the involuntary action that they have on their forehead, on their eyebrows, on their eyes, like you can learn so much from that, and that makes the performance of an animator very, very, very effective and very powerful.
Mm.
I've got a couple of other more generic suggestions for young artists. Usually, this is for any, I think, creative industry. It's not just for animation. It can be for VFX, filmmaking, video games, etc. But I would always recommend, especially young artists, to be nice to everyone, but don't let
Mm.
anyone squash you. Be
Mm.
nice, especially to people younger than you who have just started, because some people progress very quickly in this industry. Some people are incredibly talented, and the intern in your studio might become your supervisor in the future. You never know how these things work out. If people change company quite often, and you don't know who you're gonna work with next. But said that, please don't let anyone squash you down. If there are people who take advantage in this industry, like in any other industry. And I've worked with people who have been very difficult to handle, and they've tried to, belittle me or other people in the team. And
Right.
that's
Wow.
you don't have to stay silent when that happens. It's wrong to stay
Mm.
silent. So being nice is great, but speak up when something is wrong. Try to,
Mm.
ask for help, because it's not good to just accumulate pressure on your shoulders if the environment is wrong or toxic. And the other piece of advice, there is no way around in this industry. If you want to be successful, you have to work hard. It's very hard to find shortcuts in this industry. You have to really put in the work hard, but don't remember to knock harder. What does it mean? I've met lots of very talented young people who have incredible work or having a very good showreel, but they don't feel comfortable knocking at companies' doors, or they don't feel comfortable putting their work online. They don't feel comfortable contacting
Yeah.
people. So
Being demanding.
exactly, exactly. And it's important that you don't hide away, because if you work hard but you don't knock at people's door, you don't send emails, you don't get into meetings, you don't see people's faces at festivals or events, it's very hard you're gonna get hired. So put in the work. You work hard, but make sure that your work is seen when you
Mm.
work so hard to do that. That's very important. And that's it. Those were my suggestions.
No, that's good. That's all solid, like fantastic advice. And I've got a few more emails to send after this. So I need to take some of that advice, do some more knocking. Cool. So yeah, listeners, let us know what you think. If you're trying to break into animation or any creative industries, let us know what you think at studio77@mymatter.com. As we wrap up this episode, let's not forget about the bonus round.
There was just so much in that interview. I feel like I've been bestowed so much wisdom today.
I'm sorry, was it overwhelming? I apologize.
No, it's good.
No,
it's what you're here
great.
for.
Yeah, it's great because it's a podcast. So, like, we can always go back and listen to it. Yeah, so I got a few questions. So, following on from what you was just saying about not letting people kind of belittle you, how would you handle someone belittling you or belittling someone you're working with?
That's there is no formula for that. It changes from company to company. But first of all, I would confront other people in the studio and see if anyone else has had the same experience, seeing anyone else has been treated in the same way. Following that, if you have the confirmation, I would probably escalate things to the owner of the studio or the head of HR. It's there have been some cases which are very bad in our industry, cases which have been escalated and people were forced to leave the studio. Not just the people who suffered, but also the people who didn't behave properly. So I would try to speak with other people in the same situation or in the same, in your team or in a different team which might have experienced the same. And then I would try to escalate it if necessary to higher grounds. But as I said, there is no formula because every company is structured differently, every studio is structured differently, and there is a lot of political tension usually within a studio. So you have always to be careful how to move. But if things are not sustainable, I would suggest the artist to leave. I know it's hard, and people need to pay their rent at the end of the month, and some people need their job. But if things are not working out, I would recommend the artist to look for another alternative job, because there are nice studios out there who respect people, who enjoy working with people, but there are a few rotten eggs as well, unfortunately, which need to be avoided. It's a bit difficult to. I don't have an exact answer. Sorry, Tazziii, but yeah.
No, I think that was great, and I definitely think that's helpful for especially any younger people that are getting into the industry. It gives them some options and ways to sort of stand up to themselves without shaking the boat too much, I guess. The other thing I wanted to ask was, how do you balance choosing working on some smaller budget productions rather than versus high budget?
I think it depends on the amount of freedom you want to have. I think it depends on the amount of how much of your creative input you want to inject into the project. The bigger the budget, the bigger the studio, the smaller the creative freedom is. I'm not gonna lie. If you work with big brands such as Lego, Pokemon, Marvel, they have very strict rules
it's
on
all
how
set.
things. Yeah, you have to be very respectful of the brand, the product, because it's so successful, and they know what they're doing, so you have to respect the way their characters behave or what you portray on screen. Smaller budgets allow you to be very expressive and really inject your own ideas into the product. And I love doing a bit of both. Sometimes I love swinging from few months or weeks of some big brands to something a little more indie and a bit more personal. I was fortunate enough to work basically in a row I directed 3 shows which were originals. It was Obki, the Eco Alien for Sky Kids, then Bad Dinosaurs for Netflix, and now Stunning Gran. They were all original series, and that was the first edition of the first, basically the first season of these shows. So it didn't. It wasn't done before. That allowed me to really inject a lot of my ideas and personality into the shows, and that's very rewarding. So, as I said before, working and handling big well-known characters is very cool, and it's great on your portfolio. It looks great and allows people to believe in you and in your skills. That adds credibility to your profile. But I think, from an artistic point of view, working on originals is much more rewarding.
Oh, awesome! That definitely gives some insight into like the differences between the two. And then, because you were speaking about animals and nature, do you have a favorite animal?
Oh, I was not expecting this question. Oh wow! Let me think. Do I have a favorite animal?
We save the harder questions for last.
Yeah.
I love quokkas. I love quokkas to the point that I animated a quokka as my personal character for a potential TV series. Just in case you don't know, quokkas are small, like kangaroo type animals which live in the south western coast of Australia. And the quokkas are those animals which people take selfies with, and it looks like they're always smiling. Have you ever seen those on social media or online? It's like it's like small kangaroos who are always smiling into camera. Check for quokkas on
Google that now.
I literally have Google images open right now because I'm like, I need to see this. It is adorable.
I love them. I love them because they are. It really looks they're posing for pictures, and they look like real life animated characters. They could be. It doesn't look like an actual animal from real life. It looks like an animated version of it, and that's why I love them for. And I love them for that. So I think that quokkas are definitely one of my favorite animals. I've got many more though, but quokkas have a special place in my heart, to the point that I'm creating a TV show based on a quokka character. Maybe you're gonna see broadcasted somewhere in the future. Maybe not. We'll see. But yeah.
I mean, they're so cute. I'm surprised there's not more animation for them. They look like the perfect, like, fantasy animal companion.
They are amazing. They are amazing. Yeah.
They look absolutely adorable. Yeah. My final question then is, where can everyone find you online?
Oh, you can find me at www.simonegiampaolo.com. Or so my name basically, or you can just Google my name. You will find my website. I'm on Instagram and I'm on LinkedIn. You can find my profiles there too.
Cool. So I was just looking at images of quokkas, but I'll come back to that. Yeah, thank you for that.
It doesn't make you want to, just lay on a beach in Australia and take pictures with them.
Yeah, I want to give it little chin scratches and feed it things.
Oh, thanks for that tip, Simone, and thanks for joining us and giving us like your insight and amazing quotes and just perspective changing insight.
Thank you for having me. Have a lovely day.
No, I appreciate that. And I appreciate everyone listening to this. If you enjoyed this episode of Story X Story, please do make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a future episode and you can go back and listen to all the past interviews and deep dives. Also, consider giving us a 5-star rating and review because that helps us with discovery and reaching new listeners and fans of story discussions. We're also story creators and you can discover our manga universe online, including our latest title, Origins Against All Odds, standard collector's edition available. Don't forget to join the Discord as well, so you can connect with us in between episodes and get a heads up on upcoming projects and events that we do, meet others in the growing community. And part of those activities are within the Do I Look Like a Gamer representation campaign, our yearly initiative for diversity and inclusion in video games industry and culture. We've got a bunch of plans in store, so we're currently doing the photos. You can check those out in spring once they're done and edited. We're still working through those as of recording, but you can head to the campaign website for details on how to get involved, looklikeagamer.com. And as for the podcast, we release new episodes on Thursdays, and those include creator interviews like this one, video game discussions, and deep dives into stories across pop culture. You can always give us a shout directly. Our email address is studio77@myamatter.com, and our website with links to subscribe is myamatter.com/storyxstory. So thank you for tuning in. And until next time, stay safe. And remember, creativity is a wild mind with a disciplined eye. And my disciplined eye is telling my wild mind to edit this to make it sound like I just came up with that quote right now. So I'm going to go do that. Take care, everyone.